President Trump's jet, Air Force One, arrives in the Netherlands for the NATO summit at The Hague soon, maybe while we're on air. I wonder what mood he'll be in. Angry, maybe, with Israel and Iran, especially Israel, apparently, for threatening the Middle East ceasefire. He's obviously proud of brokering overnight. Maybe he's entitled to feel proud of that if it sticks. Maybe just proud of overseeing a halt to the conflict, which other leaders, including many of those assembled at The Hague, were nowhere near achieving. Is he ready for a triumphal appearance? Premiers and presidents all around ready to pay him tribute, and maybe he's dreaming of the Nobel Peace Prize he is said to covet so much. And maybe he's looking forward then to praising those leaders for being willing to promise much higher spending on defence, which is what he's demanded. Will he see through the obvious fudge of promising spending so far in the future that it barely counts as a firm plan? We'll know soon. We'll have every word he utters, I promise, when he hits the tarmac, arrives at The Hague. Now, I'm going to be talking in a moment to Kurt Volker, the former US ambassador to NATO, who was also a former special envoy to Ukraine. Welcome to you, Kurt Volker.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you, John.
It's great to have you here. Can I ask you, Kurt, as someone with expertise in these things, you've been watching what's going on in the Middle East. How much confidence do you feel at the moment? I know we cannot know. It's hard to see any distance into the future. How confident do you feel this ceasefire in the Middle East will hold? We've seen some questions. We've seen some exchange of fire. The president asserting his will. And we're seeing Iran apparently now reportedly saying that, well, we'll stop firing when Israel does. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's always important to look at the motivations of everybody. Trump clearly is motivated to just have a ceasefire. He wants people to stop firing weapons. He doesn't see any reason, why people should be doing that. He thinks they've just become addicted to fighting, and he wants the credit for ending a war. So that's Trump. On Iran, they have had serious damage to their nuclear facilities. It's going to take them a long time to recover any nuclear program. Israel has been damaging their conventional military capabilities, air defenses, missiles, etc., and has started going after some of their internal security installations as well. So they want this to stop so that they don't risk the regime. So Iran is now motivated to preserve the regime, therefore wants a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Israel would like to keep going. They're tired of having this constant threat from Iran, so they'd like to keep going and give the Iranian people an opportunity to change the regime. But I think President Trump is going to put increasing pressure on Israel to stop the fighting. And because of all of those motivations, I think we will actually see a ceasefire that does last.
Right. So your analysis suggests that Iran has a bigger stake in maintaining the ceasefire than Israel. They were so weakened and battered up to this point. And maybe you do then take the view that Israel is the side that needs to be and will need to be restrained.
Need to be convinced that despite their better their instincts to just keep going, that they need to be aligned with the United States. They need the continuous U.S. support. They've done enough damage, and we will be with them if Iran does attack again, if it does rebuild its proxies, if it does rebuild a nuclear weapon, we'll go get it again. So we have to give those assurances to Israel.
Now, you said recently, Kurt, that you thought Israel's attacks on Iran would have persuaded Iran it needs to accelerate work towards a nuclear weapon. Will President Trump's ordering of the bombing of those nuclear sites have the same effect? They're clearly more destructive than anything Israel could have achieved, but will they have the same effect in the longer term?
In terms of the will, of course. The Iranians will be more determined than ever to get the nuclear capability and build a bomb if they feel that they can do it secretly and securely. Now, I think they just learned that it was not as easy as they thought. The facilities they put so much money in were just destroyed, and they have to think hard about, do they want to spend all that money again? But their determination to have a nuclear weapon will be increased as a result of all of this, but their capability to do it is severely diminished. And we've bought a lot of time, I believe, by taking out these facilities now. And it's going to be a long time before Iran is able to reconstitute.
All right, good to get your thoughts on that. Now, NATO, I guess it is clearly, obviously there's more to the question than this, but it is an achievement for President Trump to have driven NATO to commit to bigger defense budgets, isn't it?
Absolutely. Every U.S. president from Reagan onward that I've worked for has demanded that NATO spend more money on defense, and no one has achieved it. Remember the Wales summit in 2014, President Obama got everyone to commit on paper for the first time to 2% of GDP dedicated to defense. 3 years later, when Trump took office, only three countries were doing it. So he lit a fire under everybody. By the time he took office in 2025, 28 countries are spending that much more. That is to say, 2%. And he's setting the bar at 5% and convincing European allies to go along.
Yeah. Now, I guess maybe the concerning converse of that point is that the Trump administration has been pretty clear that they want to reduce and they want to retreat essentially from the historic commitment of the United States to the defence of Europe through NATO. And were that to happen, in a significant degree, I'm not sure that gap could be filled, could it?
Look, Europe's got a bigger population and just as large a GDP as the United States, if you take Europe as a whole. So certainly the means are there. It is disaggregated a bit, so you get inefficiencies from so many countries. But nonetheless, I think compared to anything else, Europe has quite a bit of potential to replace American capabilities. But this is not about replacement. The U.S. is not talking about leaving Europe. It's not talking about Europe going it alone. It is just rebalancing so that the U.S. is not doing a disproportionate share of Europe's defense.
Yeah. Ukraine, something you know a great deal about. The war in Ukraine has had insufficient attention. It's been so overshadowed in the way that happens by the crisis in the Middle East. Meanwhile, President Trump keeps saying he is mulling tougher action against Russia. He keeps saying that Vladimir Putin's got 2 weeks or he'll face tougher action. He keeps saying that. Isn't it clear, Kurt, he has no intention of acting against Putin?
That has been the pattern. That is exactly the pattern. It says 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, thinking about sanctions, thinking about secondary sanctions. And then he asks the Congress to delay action on secondary sanctions and to change the language of legislation from the sanctions shall be imposed to may be imposed, which then means nothing, of course. So yes, he's avoided every opportunity to put pressure on Putin. I'm wondering if what's happened now with Iran, the idea that by exerting serious pressure on Iran, Iran is now ready for a ceasefire and at the negotiating table. I wonder if that might be an encouragement to President Trump to follow through on some of his comments about needing to apply more pressure on Russia, needing secondary sanctions. I certainly hope so.
All right, Kurt Volker, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.